And once more, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to Credo. We are happy to do these presentations monthly where we have a great opportunity to hear about different members' journeys. Coming up soon, we have Lisa Hagan and Dave Warren. But today our presentation is, well, it's for me. I'm Paula Gribble, she, her pronouns. I joined the staff here at UUCC in August of 2023 as the Director of Lifespan Religious Education. I oversee all aspects of the religious education program for all ages, and that includes children and youth religious education, adult religious education, spiritual development, community Sunday, Credo, and I'm staff support to several affinity groups. I have been a Unitarian Universalist for 25 years and have worked as a religious professional in various areas, including religious education, and I was a music director and I was a membership professional at one point. And I've been doing it for almost 20 years. Before I begin, I do want to offer a trigger warning. I will be talking a bit about dysfunctional family systems and sexual abuse. These events in my life would have a profound effect on me and my spiritual journey. Boy, I didn't know it at the time. And so it will be spoken. There's a chair here up front. Somebody wants to come. There's the piano bench over there. So I was born in 1973, way back in the day. And when I was 2.5 years old, my parents got divorced. My mom remarried when I was 3. I didn't see my father again until I was 9. The man my mom married was an active alcoholic and sexually abused me most of my time. When I was 8, my sister and I were in foster homes or children's homes for about a year. While we were at one of these homes, I attended church with a neighborhood friend. It was a Baptist church, and at one point they had an altar call. They asked for people to come forward who wanted to be saved. Now, of course, they meant saved by Jesus, by inviting him into your heart, and that was supposed to save your soul. But also, of course, I didn't understand all of that, and all I heard is, do you want to be saved? And I thought, yes, my life was terrible and sad, and I totally wanted to be saved, rescued from all of it. So I went forward. I repeated the words they said. I felt the minister's warm hand on my shoulder, and I believed I would be saved, but I wasn't. I went back to that church several times, and I kept going forward each time, and still I wasn't saved. Not long after, I was sent back home, because that was the healthy place to be. The court said my stepdad got some counseling and they couldn't prove anything, so they just sent us back. And my abuse continued. When I was 9, I told the counselor at school what was happening, and they immediately told my mom and stepdad. Instead of help, I was beaten for telling. In a rare moment of speaking up, I really don't know where it came from. I said, I don't want to live here anymore. Their response was, yeah, where are you going to go? And I don't know where the words came from, but I said, I want to go live with my father. Now, a reminder, I hadn't seen my father since I was 3. It was the middle of the night when he came to get me. My mom had thrown my belongings into trash bags, and my mother and my father barely spoke to one another. I left that night with a man I hadn't seen since I was 3 and his wife, who I'd never met. My father and stepmom were deeply devout, charismatic Christians. And living with them, I attended church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night. Plus, we sang for church, and we would be there at least 2 other nights during the week. This church was different from the Baptist church before, where people there looked just so, and everyone sat quietly, other than the pastor who yelled the sermons. That's what they do in Baptist churches, right? My father's church instead was loud, and people moved and swayed. People spoke in tongues, and sometimes they even passed out in the aisles. It blew my mind that somebody would pass out and somebody would just like toss a jacket over them. Somehow my little brain thought that maybe since these people were louder and more passionate, that maybe God could hear them more. So I wholeheartedly agreed to be baptized. I was told that baptism was like starting over, like being washed clean. And I carried a lot of shame about my abuse, so I thought it made me dirty. And the baptism sounded perfect to me. I got a new dress, and on that special Sunday, I took the steps up to the baptismal tank. I stepped down into the water, ready to be washed clean and once again saved. The pastor said a prayer, held the back of my head, and I held my nose. I was dipped backward into the water and quickly pulled back up. Everyone clapped and cheered and said lots of words of praise. We had a special party after church for those of us who were baptized. There was music and treats and even cake. Everyone seemed so happy for me, and I tried to believe that I was changed, that I had been saved. But a few months later, it was summer, and I was supposed to go visit my mom and my siblings. My father said I was going for 2 weeks, so that's all I packed for. When I got there, my mom said I was staying for the whole summer. After the 2 weeks were up, my father called and asked if I was ready to come home. My mom was on one extension to hear everything. They had coached me to say I wanted to stay. And then my stepdad took the phone from me and told me to leave. So my mom was on one phone, my stepdad was on the other. They talked to my father for a while. I have no idea what was said. And I never saw or talked to my father again. And I only had 2 weeks worth of belongings, no toys, not much of anything. And the abuse started again. I had not been saved after all, even though I had been baptized. Back with my mom and stepdad, we lived in an apartment complex, and on Sundays, several church buses would come and pick up all the poor kids in the neighborhood, including myself, and take them to churches. I don't know if has anybody ever had that experience? Like literally these church buses would just come and whoever was out playing on the playground or waiting or whatever would get on these buses. That would never happen today. And they would take us to church. My mom and stepdad put us on the buses, happy to have us out of the house. They found ways to get rid of us a lot. The churches were Methodist and Baptist. Some were ornate and huge, others small and humble. And each place I went, I tried yet again to be saved. This time I was a little older, and I thought maybe it was that I wasn't devout or dedicated enough. They had explained that if you didn't really give yourself to the Lord, that you wouldn't really be saved. I memorized all the books of the Bible. I won a Babe Ruth candy worm for that. I learned the commandments and the Psalms. I prayed so hard, and still I was not saved. I forgot about church after that. I wasn't mad at it. I was sad it didn't help me, but I just figured it was me that wasn't good enough. I was really lucky that I was me, though. I was strong, even though I didn't know it then. And I fought really hard to make it. To grow up into a pretty positive, kind, smart person. I always had a part of me that believed in something. It's what Christians call grace and what Unitarian Universalists call their first principle, the inherent worth of each person. I always had that. And even after everything I'd been through, and even though I didn't know anything about Unitarian Universalism then, I really believed it to be true. And I think I was born this way. And even my horrible childhood didn't beat it out of me. Fast forward to high school. Over the previous 5 or 6 years, I had visited churches with friends. I was really close to my grandparents also, and I sing. So I sang songs to my people that were hymns. Just a Closer Walk with Thee in particular was his favorite. I even attended a church for over a year so I could be part of a youth group. But I no longer tried to be saved. I just thought it was a nice place to go. When I was around 16, my best friend asked if I would help with a play that she was volunteering with. I had found a great love in theater, so I was really excited. The play was being performed at a church, a UU church. I didn't know what that was, but the play was about a gay man coming out to his family, and it was being performed at a church. I thought that was cool, but it didn't really sink in. Once I got out of my house and went to college, I didn't do church anymore. Theater was my church. Nature was my church. I grew to believe that there was something bigger than myself. I believed that there was a higher version of me that I could aspire to. I grew to believe that the universe was conspiring for good. Considering everything, I really don't know where all that came from, but it just felt right to me. Fast forward again, and I'm around age 24, 25. I was a single mom with a 2-year-old daughter, Tatiana, and I lived with my best friend Sherry and her 4-year-old daughter, and we were co-parenting. Sherry's dad died by suicide, and understandably, there was a lot of talk in the house about that. Caitlin, Sherry's daughter, had all kinds of questions. People had talked to her about heaven, and she wanted to know if her grandpa was going there. And I just want to say how terrible it is. Don't ever do this. Someone had told my child that he went to sleep and didn't wake up. So she didn't want to go to sleep anymore. But aside from that, they had lots of questions. And Sherry and I would always say, well, some people believe in God in heaven. Some people believe heaven is just a symbol for where your soul goes. Some people believe, and Caitlin interrupted, I don't care what some people believe, she said. I want to know what we believe. It was a hard realization. She was right. So I had to figure out what to do about that. And I recalled a quote that has been attributed to one of my favorite writers, Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, the gods we worship write their names on our faces. Be sure of that. And a man will worship something. That which dominates will determine his life and character. Therefore, it behooves us to be careful what we worship. For what we are worshiping, we are becoming. I realized it was time to find a place that espoused like-minded values, at least, because our kids were going to be worshiping something if we did not fill in the blanks or offer them a space to be curious. I remembered the UU church where I did that play when I was in high school, and as it turns out, my favorite writer, Emerson, was a Unitarian minister. We lived in Lansing, Michigan, and I looked up the local UU church. It seemed like an okay place. It had a vibrant children's program. So we started going. Tatiana loved being with the other kids, and I loved singing in the choir. We became members, and we folded into that community well. And I began to tell people I go to a UU church. We were there about 5 years, and then we decided to move back to Arkansas. We didn't decide. It was a huge mess in my life, but not this story. That's another time. Once back in Arkansas, I realized that the local UU church was the same one where that play was I helped in high school. I had met my then boyfriend, Eric, who is now my husband, and we started attending. Soon after, they needed a music director, and I was hired. Being the music director, I really loved choosing the music that spoke to UU values. I reveled in teaching my choir to sing with passion and meaning, and that meaning seeped into every part of my life. In 2008, I took a full-time position at that same church as a membership professional, and I was still the music director, because I very rarely ever do one thing at once. I was asked to attend a week-long leadership development experience, which some people called UU Boot Camp. And it was put on by what was then the Southwestern District, which is now part of the Southern region. To say it was life-changing would be an understatement. That week, I learned how to put all my passion and devotion to UUism into purpose. I learned how the work I did for my congregation rippled out to the wider movement and had the potential to change the world. And I truly believed it. I was a Unitarian Universalist, and I haven't stopped since. I don't mean it to sound easy. I don't believe it is. Being UU is harder than most faith traditions. To truly live this faith, we have to bring our principles and values into every part of our life. We are called to honor and respect every person, even when they're mean, even when they don't believe the same thing we do. We are asked to care for our planet and everything in it. We are challenged to learn and grow beyond our own comfort. We are encouraged to share our voice and participate in democracy. And we are beseeched to fight for justice and equity. And it is hard. And it is sometimes exhausting, but it is what it means to be a UU. All this time and all the things I went through led me to right where I am right now, here today. And who knew after all of that craziness, I would end up being religious. Super UUing, chalice loving, deeply devoted religious. I used to say I go to a UU church, and now I say I am a Unitarian Universalist. And you know what? I finally got saved. Now is the time that we open it up for questions. I'm a pretty open person, so you can ask whatever you like. Yeah.
Where's your daughter now?
Huh?
Where's your daughter?
My daughter now is 28 and she just moved back to Memphis. She's a mental health counselor. She likes to pretend that she's not UU and then she'll be like, I was at church the other day. And she'll say things like she'll be talking to me about something she did and go, and I told them that we're supposed to be fighting for justice and equity. And I was like, okay, honey, you're still pretty UU. And my older stepdaughter, who's turning 33 this year, is a UU. And my son, who's 18, does not go anywhere, but he's pretty much a UU. It's like the period where they don't go to church, you know. Yes.
Yeah, Paul, I just want to honor you and what I've been learning about wounds becoming gifts. And you're a very good example of how that has happened in your life and how you've created that. We're the beneficiaries. So thank you for turning your wounds into your gifts.
Yeah. I'm telling you, whatever it was that I was born with, and my friend Sherry that I was talking about, and I used to say she was physically abused growing up, and both of her parents committed suicide. And you heard about my family, and so we used to talk about it a lot. And it was like, you know, at some point we came to some crossroads, and whatever it was, other people go that way, and we went this way, and went to school and cared for children, and you know, we both work in serving professions, and it could have just as easily been loneliness and sadness and carrying those wounds and having that lived out through lots of bad choices. So I feel very blessed. I really do. Yes.
Once an adult, did you sever relations with your parents?
Yeah, so I was going to University of Memphis. It was my junior year, 1994, before I had my child. And I decided that I wasn't going to go home for Thanksgiving. And it occurred to me that I just didn't want to do that. And my mother called and yelled and cried. And then she sent me a horrible letter about how everything was kind of my fault. And she said the funniest thing. She said, "You're the person who always gives people second chances. And so I want you to stop thinking me of your mom and think of me as just a person in your life. What would you do?" And I went, "Oh, I wouldn't be around you at all." Like, thanks, that was really free. So I went back 4 years later when my grandmother was dying because she asked for me. And I sort of got caught up, and my mom told me everything was different. She was an addict by this time, and things were not different. And then she passed away in 99.
What about your father?
I didn't ever get to see or talk to him again.
Yeah.
I tried to find him, and he found out he passed away in 2006. But I did find my half sibling, who lived with us when I lived with my father, and we are friends on Facebook. We don't have like sibling relationship, but we know who each other is at least. Yes,
In your line of work, you probably encounter children who are hoping to be saved
yeah.
from something, as much as we like to think bad things never come into these circles. Obviously, we can't divinely whisk them out of bad circumstances, but what can you and we do for children who need that help?
Yes, well, I would tell you that everyone is a mandated reporter. They used to say, do you know what a mandated reporter is? Yeah. They used to say that it was mental health professionals, teachers, as a religious educator, I'm specifically by law mandated reporter, but everybody's a mandated reporter. So if you hear of something, please listen to the children. Please do not call their parents first. When I worked at a previous congregation, I had a family that went through a horrible divorce. Part of the reason was that the husband started abusing one of the daughters in front of the other daughter. And they were getting bullied in court reunification to get back together. And so each one of the girls in different circumstances, actually, one of them was having a really hard time one day at summer camp. We went in to do something and she asked me if she could talk to me and told me about how she didn't want to live anymore if she had to go back to him. So I reported. And the other thing that I do in my line of work that I would hope that Unitarian Universalists do is show love, just an abundance of love. Because I just didn't know that anybody was there for me. And the people who said they were there for me never were. And the teachers didn't know what to do. And the counselors called my parents. And so I really didn't feel like I had anyone. So that for me is the lesson. Be the someone. Yes.
You started as a music director, and you are now director of lifespan education. Was that a deliberate transition? And if so, what was the draw?
I love being a music director. I miss conducting. I miss working with the choir. It means a lot to me, and it was a ministry in and of itself. When I was between churches, I actually considered just looking for music directors' jobs. But what I have found about myself is that I have a lot more ministry to do. And I have a skill that I'm really gifted with that makes people feel safe. And people always tell me that I create just this amazing safe space for people. And I can't not use that gift. And membership professional was I really cared about that, what draws people into membership, and I miss that. At the previous church in Cherry Hill, I was the religious educator, but also the membership person and the leadership development person. And that combo of things is kind of like, right. But I love working with people of all ages, and that ministry, the kinds of things I did with the choir are just expanded. I still talk about purpose and meaning. I still pull out of people, giving with their heart, but it comes with a lot more words and abilities to do different things. Yes.
I'm aware of Stephen's ministry.
Mhm.
Is there any chance that we might get some of that type of training in congregational care?
They have the Stevens Ministry, for those of you who don't know, ordains certain people or certifies certain people to do pastoral care. There have been a couple of movements to do lay pastoral care training. In the Central East region, they had a program out of Ohio that actually took similar to a Stevens thing, and they ended up being a certified lay minister. And that, once we went to regionalization, they've been trying to figure out a way to offer more of that. So there's a thing called UU Leader Lab, and the classes are $30 a piece, and one of them is about spiritual and pastoral care. That's a really good training. Yes.
I know that children and youth religious education took a big hit during the pandemic. Which made me so sad because both of our children grew up in this church and grew up in the religious education program. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what your goal is, what your ideas are.
Wow. So first of all, I would say everybody took a hit.
Yeah.
So that people who don't know that, I have my friend who is religious educator in Tulsa, which if you don't know about All Souls Tulsa, it's one of, if not the biggest congregation we have. and was talking to that colleague, and she said that they were having like 20 kids. For them, that's like, I mean, for, you know, for a congregation of thousands, it was pretty much the same as the kind, you know, across the board.
Same percentage.
So one of the things that's happened is we've all kind of, our colleagues have all been working together.
Mhm.
And so, one of the things before pandemic hit that we had already started to move toward was away from standard Sunday school kind of teaching. I don't know if you know what the history of Sunday school, but originally it was kids who had to work and didn't get to go to school. So on the weekend, they would go to church and they would get literally Sunday school. And so they taught them math and reading and, you know, usually the Bible and those stories, but taught them actually like school. And so for a long time, church Sunday school or religious education has been very much like school. A bunch of people sitting, somebody imparting a bunch of information at them, and then they're supposed to learn that way, right? And we had already been starting to move that. There was a colleague that wrote an article called The Death of Sunday School that was really hit a lot of people. And so we were starting to think of things as like whole life faith development. So we try to help our families beyond just when they come and be in the classroom. We support family ministry, not just working with the children. I do believe in all of that. And some of what we're doing here is shifting a little bit. You know, I'm new here. And so luckily, wonderful people like Melissa and Lisa Walls set up, you know, stuff for when I came. But even I'm rewriting the lessons because the curriculum that we have that was made before the pandemic doesn't work anymore. It's not. You used to be progressive curricula. You did one, then you did lesson 2, then you did lesson 3. We don't have the same kids every week. We sometimes only have kids once a month. They might come to other things and not really come to Sundays very regularly. So it makes kids feel bad if they show up and they don't know what's being talked about. So we create a space where things are not progressive like that, where it's you can jump in whenever you're here. Previously, I have done something that we might try a little bit here. Some rotations where on a class day, we do something other than being in class. So something like a social justice project. I've done children's chapel a lot, just a worship experience for children and youth. And one of the other things that I love is I've done spiritual practice Sundays. So we take a spiritual practice and do that with the children. So those are ways to like invigorate the program that we hope the numbers will follow. But it really is whole church. Like we have to really get our shit together. Because they'll walk in the front door and walk right out the back. If we don't think about truly family ministry, if we don't support the children, if the children are siloed and the adults never see them, all of those things. Got a minute or two left.
Do you think it will return to a time where you do like the progressive?
No.
It's never gonna be the same again.
I can't speak for,
Right.
you know, the future, but I doubt it.
Okay.
Because even if we do, you know, on paper curricula, it's altered, it's shaped, it's done it's done in a more active way. So I think that'll continue.
Maybe one possibility would be to get some of the parents that have kids together and see what might work. I would be part of it.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that wounds really do tend to carve out compassion. So I'm glad you were able to work through everything enough to
Thank you.
come help us in that. I think your talks are great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I feel like it has taught me a lot. I have said about my siblings, my brother said it happened to all of my siblings who lived in the house. So my brother said it happened to me and I don't want to ever talk about it again. My sister said it happened to me and I won't let anybody ever hurt me again. And I said it happened to me and I don't want anyone else to ever feel like that. And that's sort of like how I carry myself. So. Or at least try. Anything else? All right, I'll hang around for a minute or two if you want to.